My name is Radical Ryan Hunter. Fate has brought David and I to do recaps of another classic TV show. Once again, darkness falls on the great house of Collinwood, but we aren't all alone. The house has welcomed two other visitors. One, a man with riveting eyes and a dry, heaving type of mouth. The other, death. Sweeping down into the once quiet village, tonight another wail of horror will be heard. Did I mention death?
I think you did.
Welcome back, Radical Ones. It is I, Radical Ryan Hunter, here with everyone's favorite brother, David, and we are doing Hour 2, as it's called, David. Hour 2.
Hour 2, okay.
Of Dark Shadows, The Revival.
It's the midnight special.
It's the midnight special. So honestly, in our first episode, we set up that Barnabas the vampire has been released after centuries. Victoria Winters, the young governess who David remembered was 20, comes to Collinwood to take care of David Collins. There has been a vampire attack on Daphne, a family member, a niece of Elizabeth.
The most level-headed one of the group, supposedly. But she still walked 5, 6, 7. She did a 10K in heels to get back to her car, which ended up getting her attacked initially. Just saying.
We find her held up in bed. She's supposed to be resting. She collapsed. Cue the Dark Shadows theme. Now, David, we do this on our Thundercats episode just for anyone who wants to hear. The original air date was January 14th of 1991.
I don't know how I watched it. I was barely a fetus at that point.
Well, it was NBC. It was, well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
I was so young then.
Things were different.
Time ran still. One of the things I don't think we did in the first episode, we didn't do a synopsis of the episode. Are we going to do that from this point on, or what do we do with that?
We'll hit the basic points. We'll go through it, as we're telling it. And then we'll just give our, what we feel or our thoughts of it.
Okay. So you have Daphne. Daphne was attacked. She was the originally attacked, besides Willie Loomis, who opened Barnabas's crypt or coffin or whatever you want to say. She was attacked. She's been repeatedly attacked. They're catching on. Some of the members of this group are catching on that there's possibly a vampire. You have Michael, who is the town, I don't know, I'm calling him witch doctor, historian, philosopher. I'm every woman. I have no idea. He does everything. He's like the person you go to about possibly anything and everything.
This is Dr. Woodward.
But is he a doctor, or is he a doctor of, philosophy?
Actually, he's Professor Woodward. Okay. So professor could mean anything, honestly, right?
So he's catching on.
In the original series, there is a character called Professor Stokes. And this character is the only one in this remake that doesn't retain the original name of this character. But I found out, David, that the actor actually studied the voice and the mannerisms of the original actor who played Dr. Stokes. Because I kept saying, why is he playing Stokes and not being called Dr. Stokes? So yeah, he's basically the one. He's kind of like, well, there's been blood being drained. And then they're showing that it's human DNA.
Human saliva found on the necks and in the wounds of, and Dr. Julia
Hoffman, yes, she has been called in.
She has discovered that there is a cell, as she describes it, a destructive cell inside the bodies of the people that have been bit. And we know that from the last episode that she has hypnotized Daphne to get information out of her to help her, and only thing she can say is eyes and mouth, and she's traumatized. She deduces that it is actually Barnabas, even though she has not let her musings, go to anybody else, because Daphne seems to react when she sees Barnabas and she collapses, and then she ends up moving her to the first floor because in case she should have.
She was proud of that too. You notice that? She had to mention it twice. Oh, I moved her to the first floor.
She didn't fall. Well, that's if she's a fall hazard. They want to put her to the first floor. So fast forward, Daphne, unfortunately, she has a sheriff watching her as well as her man, who could have been my man.
Oh, Haskell.
Joe.
At one point,
What a body.
he becomes the victim. Yes, and he is giving us hairy chest galore.
But like beautifully
gorgeousness.
done.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we'll get into it, but Roger has body too. Who knew? Who knew Roger? Cranky old Roger. But we'll get into that.
So basically, Daphne, Barnabas comes and he does the typical vampire lore. He makes the sheriff, they're in shifts. The sheriff goes to take a nap at 4 a.m., by the way, which is so funny because
he was doing well.
He waited.
Yeah,
4 a.m. Barnabas waited till 4 a.m. Now listen, sunrise in a lot of places like 5:30, 6.
Oh, and maybe. If you're hungry and starving too.
Yeah.
So
he didn't go to Taco Bell for midnight craving.
Professor Woodward actually does give her a cross to wear, and she says,
"Just wear it." He's like, "Just wear it. Just wear it." Just because he didn't want to explain.
Daphne, I have a little favor to ask of you. I would like you to wear this tonight.
Michael.
Please, Julia, indulge the whim of an aging eccentric. I want Daphne to wear this.
Of course I'll wear it, Professor.
Good.
Julia wasn't having it, though. She was looking like, Michael, you really throwing that cross up in here when I'm trying to do blood vaccines? It's a serious study. So thank God she puts the cross on. But of course, David, it doesn't matter.
Barnabas makes Joe fall asleep. Even though he had taken a good sleep, he'd been asleep until 4 a.m. when the sheriff woke him up the deputy woke him up for his shift, which would have only been like 2.5 hours.
That's it, right?
You're telling me he couldn't just stand up?
He could have, but
had some coffee.
Then
had an energy drink. So anyway, Barnabas makes him fall asleep, and then he ends up murdering Daphne.
She rips that cross off her neck, like
she walks to him
in the garden.
And then you have what is described as one of the wettest funerals I have ever seen on record. It was like as if
David Monsoon.
May the peace which passes all understanding keep your hearts and minds and remain with you always. Amen. Daphne Collins was indeed a giving, kind, and loving soul. Her greatest pleasure was sharing that gentleness of life with all who knew her. All others called, she willingly answered, and has been called now to another world. The world I trust far better than the one she leaves behind. Daphne's favorite image of the Almighty was of God the shepherd, a shepherd to her friends. She is now one of his flock. Please join me in reciting her favorite passage from the good book, Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Thy rod and thy staff shall comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies.
I know that this is definitely the machines that produce the fake rain work in overdrive.
1,000%.
Because let me tell you something. It was like someone was taking buckets. It wasn't even like just regular raindrops. It was like just somebody. You remember like in Grease too when the guy with the buckets of all the leaves? It was like he was pouring buckets of water on top of them. It was ridiculous. But anyway, did you notice that?
You could not notice it. I don't know how the actors didn't start laughing because it was the phoniest looking downpour. It literally looked like, yes, they poured everything down on top of them. I actually wrote that Dr. Woodward turned into Richard Dreyfuss in Jaws at the funeral at one point. He had like the glasses and that hat and he was soaked. I said, wow. David, this I have to tell you is a scene, again, right from 1970s House of Dark Shadows. The same dialogue followed. It's not as wet as this. It's raining, but they really upped their game with the monsoon. Followed by David saying that if he catches the ball, Daphne isn't dead. In the movie, it's Carolyn. So
this is so bizarre. He's like, if I catch this one, Daphne isn't dead. If I catch this one, Daphne isn't dead. Now you tell me, that's not a little bit, you know what?
If I catch this one, Daphne isn't dead. If I catch this one, Daphne isn't dead.
He's living in his own world, David.
David is something wrong with him. I think they should have sent him someplace to get some real help.
Not just Victoria Winters as the governess.
So then you have Daphne, who's like, okay, she doesn't even, okay, yeah, she has got her best 80s mall. She's at the mall in the 80s.
Like that.
Her hair is teased up. She's on Long Island or New Jersey. She's got her hair teased up to the heavens. She can catch satellites in it. It's so high.
But that's what Collins did, though, for her burial, or was that part of the vampire process?
Oh, no. When you become a vampire, you get volume.
Because it was hysterical.
Now, let me tell you something. She didn't even try to put on a fake face. She was full on demonic eyes and teeth. She's like, I'm not even going to pretend to be. David. She just like went right. She's like, oh, just come right here. I'm gonna rip your face off, kid.
And no build-up in the movie. It's kind of, he's actually in a pool, and that's collapsing, a pool room in the real house that I did go to. Watch our video on YouTube, by the way, to see the original pool. And it's like build-up, and he slowly sees her. This one, he like turns around, and she just comes right out of like, looks like the garden or whatever. And she's just like, David, with those eyes. Yeah, it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer eyes.
At least she didn't have Kool-Aid mouth like the...
Well, give her time.
So David runs in. They're all having dinner. Now, you have Victoria Winters, who's supposed to be his governess. This kid is running around this.
She said a word.
Anywhere. She's looking she's downtrodden, though. Poor Victoria. She's feeling it. She's feeling a little. She's like, I just got this new job. She's like, I got this new job. The kid's a psycho. The father's an a-hole. Everyone's dying around me, and there's supernatural forces. And then I got this older man that, he keeps telling me that we're reincarnated from other people. She's like, I'm just going to go with it.
But David, she did, and I got to cut to this because it's so random. At one point in her one scene in this episode, what is she doing? She's watching David, has no dialogue, and she's writing Josette with infinity signs. That's it. That's her and sitting at the table this episode. So she's actually going with this. She's like, am I Josette? Can I be Josette to get out of this damn place?
Oh my God, it's Elena from Vampire Diaries. She's writing in her diary. Anyway.
David, I just found out, David has been watching Vampire Diaries. I watched this video last night that just came on after Dark Shadows, the most hated main characters in TV shows, and Elena is like number 4 or 5.
Well, I can understand why.
Out of 20. Out of
all time. Like, you're the all-time. What was number 1?
Honestly, I don't remember. But I remember Lena was like number 4, and I was like, damn, she must have been really bad.
We're talking about Dark Shadows, but Elena is always as victimized. Everyone has to protect her. And even the characters, Catherine Pierce, everyone else is like, oh, poor Elena. Everyone's got to protect Elena. Meanwhile, she's a vampire.
That's what they said. They said she's miserable, and everyone has to protect her and feel bad about her. That's what they said. Something like that.
For Bonnie, justice, hashtag justice for Bonnie Bennett. That's all I got to say. Anyway.
Elaine.
So anyway, David somehow escapes Daphne, probably because she's on slow-mo, gliding across the floor kind of a thing. She's not even running.
David, we have to mention, can Carolyn not be sexy at one moment? At the dinner table, she's sitting perched like she's about to perform a sex act.
She wants Joe.
She's on. I was like, Carolyn, she's
like, oh, Joe, he needs me. He needs all this.
My God. I was like, okay.
Yeah, Carolyn's a hoe.
At the table, this dinner table. This is when Dr. Woodward goes, David, go to sleep, and I got to announce to everybody, I think it's a vampire.
I believe Daphne was destroyed by a vampire, and that tonight she walks as one of the living dead.
And then, of course, Roger is like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go see my mistress, Maggie. I know she was reading those tarot cards and she kept pulling up the death. She's like, oh, Dad, more people are going to die. He's like, I know you put faith in those cards, but...
Maggie, I know you put a lot of stock in these things, but...
Pop, somebody else is going to die.
I put faith in her nipples that we saw when she was after her sex with Roger.
Oh, and did you see that she was wet? The whole front of her blouse was wet. Like she had her shirt was like wet, like she had
an 80s workout video. I've never seen that on prime time, David. That had to be 90s. Soaked and nipples. Although they probably never thought this was going to be HD, but
She has HD nipples.
HD nipple action. If you're into women's nipples, check out episode 2 of Dark Shadows, the Revival. So we set up that she's having
Hashtag Maggie's nipples.
her father owns the Blue Whale. She was a governess. She took over for Victoria in the original series, but this one, no. She's just...
That would have been so easy. Then she could be right in the house with Roger. So anyway, you find out that Roger is having an affair with Maggie.
And she, evidently, they're trying to set up, like David said, she was probably going to end up being some kind of like tarot reader, witch kind of character, which would have been cool. But so far, she's just nipples and a sexy figure. And Roger, who knew he was hiding all that body underneath that anger? I mean, it wasn't, it's better than mine. Hey. And he's what?
Was he giving you Vladimir Putin on a horse?
My God.
I digress.
Julia Hoffman. Okay, so I mentioned in the first episode, Radical Ones. She wraps her fingers around her neck in this episode. I gotta give a still. I should have gave her for David. Her fingers look like they wrap around twice. If she grabs her neck and her fingers are they're unnatural, David. I can't get over Barbara's feels unnatural. They look like they could have went around another time like a scarf.
So are you talking, so you're saying her fingers look like
Desperado
in the original Fright Night when he closes the shade and
yes, that's exactly that.
And he pulls the shade down with those elongated fingers.
That's Julia Hoffman's hand when she's shocked. She's also working on the Blood David, right? So did you notice her Diana Prince glasses that don't have glass in them?
I did.
Because they must have realized that these were going to reflect like crazy, because when they go back to Dr. Woodward...
This is something I would imagine you would do if you were going undercover.
Like what, putting fake glass?
Like you'd have glasses on, but they'd have no leads in them for some reason.
And if I did, I would want them to be those huge Sally Jesse ones that she's wearing, because those were amazing.
Shout out to Sally Jesse Raphael.
Yeah.
The Sally Jesse Raphael show, if you know what we're talking about, for anybody that's seen that in the 80s.
But she's saying that she could make a vaccine, David.
Let's rewind a little bit. Michael tells Joe that he would be the next possible choice because of his connection to Daphne. He thinks he's crazy. He runs out to get air, and of course Daphne's there to feed on him. He gets put into the Daphne room.
He's kept that set up already. Like, oh,
he's getting blood, and this is when Julia really is like, she's like, I know. I'm gonna tell Michael that I don't think he's on to something, but he knows that I know. So then you see Barnabas visits, and Julia notices he does not cast a reflection in the mirror.
She did it real good too. She was kind of like, she looks into the mirror, and then she's like, and then she looks back again, and she's like, okay.
She's like, okay, so this is it.
Barnabas, David, is, if you know, like he's putting it on, he is doing the most posing to Elizabeth. Oh, Elizabeth, I'm so
I honestly, I didn't care for the acting in this, and this is what, remember you had said in the first. It was a little too cheesy, a little too like, oh dear cousin, let me kiss your hand. Oh, I was, whatever. He was just like, I was so taken aback to hear the news of our dear cousin, blah, blah, blah. It was like too much. It sounded too phony to me.
Good evening.
Barnabas, thank you for coming.
Roger. Dr. Hoffman.
Cousin Barnabas, I'm so glad you're here.
My dear cousin, I'm so terribly sorry. As you know, I've been in Boston on business.
Yes, Barnabas, we know that.
Upon my return, when Willie told me of the terrible things which have occurred, I, of course, immediately rushed over here.
Thank you. Your presence is always a comfort.
I mean, it makes sense if Ben Cross is supposed to be, he's pretending, but it did come off as so, like, even Elizabeth was kind of like
cheesy and disingenuous, but maybe that's what he was playing, though.
Yeah, that's true. So that does happen, and this is when she's like, oh crap. Though in the meantime, now we have to set up that now Daphne is doing the whole calling to him, Joe. At some point now, I guess Dr. Woodward has convinced everybody, or Professor, let's not give him the title, yeah. He's got the sheriff to believe it because he's armed the cops with the most cheapest looking tinfoiled crosses that they could find. It's almost like they were like, what do we have lying around the jail? Put some tinfoil, make some crosses out of this, because it looked so, but again, HD, I digress, we didn't expect this. We get to this one part, and I wrote, the stable with the Spanish Revival wagon wheel outside. Daphne is posing behind this, I don't even know. She's behind like this like thing, and she's calling to Joe. She's posing in this thing, calling to him. She didn't go right to bite David. I wrote they had a little foreplay beforehand. Like she's kissing him, like when she kissed Barnabas. That was some Phoebe and Cole kissing from Charmed. She almost ate her face.
Joe, we will be together forever.
They both, I guess it's a thing because they were kissing, but he's getting fed upon, right? And the policemen are about to leave, and then they hear a bang.
Which is his hand falling because he's starting to fade.
In this farmhouse. Again, this scene is right out of the 70s movie. It was Carolyn. And they, oh my God, they kill her. They stab her and stab her and stab her and stab her.
Hold her down.
How many times did they stab this woman? And did she say, I love you? Mouth that to him? Or am I
at the very end when she turns back into human form before she dies, I think.
So she does say that then. Well, she said so. She's like whispering something. I was like, so that gives credence that these people really do know what's going on.
Well, here's the thing, and this is something that always gets me, and it's happened in a lot of vampire movies. You have the main vampire, you have the Dracula, you have the Barnabas, whatever. They pull back their nasty vampire side and can have a cordial conversation, but it's always the minions that always are in demonic vampire form ready to pounce no matter what time of day, season, hour. Like you never see them like normal, quote unquote. It's always they're always like I'm sure there are times, but like, I don't know, like if I ever turned into a vampire, I would want to like look normal for a bit before I go into full on ugly face.
Oh, yeah. Daphne just wanted to get to it, though. She's like, oh, Joe.
Well, Joe and her were well into sex, hot and heavy into sex, too, because even when she was half dead, after she was drank upon the first time, they were ready to have sex. Oh, can you leave us alone, doctor?
Well, wouldn't that have brought you back to life, too, David? That would have brought me back to life for a little.
You mean with Joe?
Yeah, I gotta hold on a little. I gotta hold on for this.
Ryan, hold on for one more day. It's gonna go your way. So they do end up killing Daphne, and Joe does recover, but he is saying that I need to get out of here. He's having nightmares, just like David is having nightmares.
Yes. Oh my God, which we see in the next episode, which is horrific.
So we have our resident tramp trying to seduce as he's having a mental breakdown.
That's why Daphne's like, oh, I better make him a vampire now, because she knew that Carolyn was waiting.
Oh, she's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have to kill her next.
She's coming. Julia, she's gathered all her information, and she has a voiceover. She's like, at sunset, I am going to confront the monster. And she takes her walk. She goes to the old house. David, I want to ask you, did Willie's skin look like it's clearing up a little? Like, is that part of the whole, like, Barnabas redoing his life process?
I don't know, but maybe he didn't beat him recently.
His skin looked like it cleared up a little, because I feel like he was pimply in the first. I don't know. I just want those teeth. I want Barnabas to invest in those teeth for him. That's it. Because he's dressing nice. He's really trying to be. He still loves Victoria. He still wants the best for her. He's terrified that Dr. Hoffman is now here. But I love that she comes in and she's like, oh, where's that door, Willie? She just busts in. She keeps going.
Like, out of my way, Willie.
I love her.
Don't make me backhand you in your own house.
Doc! What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. You gotta leave.
Why, Willie? Why do I have to leave? Is Barnabas here, Willie?
No, he ain't here. He ain't gonna be here.
But he will be soon, won't he? Because the sun's nearly set, and that's when Barnabas Collins comes to life. Isn't that right, Willie?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course you do, Willie. Where is he?
Doc, I keep telling you, you gotta go!
Tell me where he is, Willie. Where does that door lead, Willie?
Nowhere. It just...
Nowhere?
It just goes... It only goes down...
There he is, Willie.
It only goes down... It only goes down... No! Don't! You can't go down there!
Does this look that it was hysterical. She like looks at him. She's like, where does that go, Willie? She looks at the door, looks at him, looks at the door, and just goes for it.
Either she's very brave or very stupid.
Well, she's both.
Would you face a vampire?
She was ready, right? So she
didn't have a cross. She did have a cross. So she goes down into the basement. And he's like, she flips open the coffin. He's like, get that cross out of my face.
The face that he makes these faces. He does great faces of horror. The coffin opens and it's like the face that he's under. He's already like horrified under the coffin opening with her cross. So that was something. But did you notice, David, the light? They're supposed to be, I'm assuming, really candelabras, but there was electricity cords running into them. So,
well, here's the funny thing. Yes, because in the secret room that Barnabas takes Victoria Winter's Josette's apparently her little hideout, her happy place. There's electricity running through it. Those lights are electrical.
Willie's been busy.
Basically, she pulls the cross away and she basically tells him that they have this back and forth. She's like, I'm a doctor, a scientist. I studied the blood and it's this and that and I can do it. And he's like, I'm cursed. Your science can't help me. She's like, at least let me try.
Which truly, at this point, what do you have to lose?
So then we start this trial where she takes blood samples and she's testing his blood in sunlight to see how it reacts while she's giving him this experimental treatment to suppress these cells, these malignant cells or whatever you want to call it that are in his body.
This episode ends on her smiling when she says, I can help you. And when he finally agrees, she does this smile and it ends on her, to be continued. Dun, 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 dun.
All right, Doctor. When shall we begin?
I mean, and this goes back to the original Dark Shadows. Do you believe vampirism is something that can be cured with science? Especially since we don't learn yet in the series, but Barnabas was cursed from a witch, so it wasn't like it was a blood disease.
It depends on which vampire lore you follow, because you do contract it. It's almost like a venereal disease from a vampire. They bite you, they put their venom into your body, their bad juju, and then you become a vampire. So here's the thing. This is the thing that's never explained in this process. So let's say I become a vampire, right? I'm dead. My heart has stopped. So if you're curing me, slowly you're killing my body that's running on vampire blood or whatever you want to say. Run on the vampire disease. So wouldn't you die? Your heart wouldn't start again. Like that's the thing. That's the thing. So like for example, the Vampire Diaries, they can still eat. You know what I mean? Like it just depends on what you follow. You know, crucifixes don't work. It's like different things. Like Barnabas can walk into people's houses, right, without being welcomed in. So like it really depends. I mean, I like the idea. It's a novel idea that she can treat him for it. But however, this is going to continue in the next episode.
Yeah, because the next episode is the science episode. That's what we should call it, the science episode. It's all about Barnabas doing his thing. So Daphne is dead. Joe is possibly leaving town. Victoria, she was there. She was writing Josette in a notebook and watching David sleep. Dr. Hoffman is going to attempt to cure Barnabas, and Professor Woodward is on to the vampire. And I'm assuming at this point the town is on to vampires too, because
there is a part, and I don't know if it's in the next episode, where she basically says there was some deaths, but it was all worth it in the name of science. Just like, again, I hate to go back to the Vampire Diaries, but that's in the forefront of my mind because we've been watching it. Vampire blood can cure people without turning them into vampires. So maybe she's got the idea of doing this for some kind of scientific we can help
the greater good. She thinks the greater good.
She's a little crazy too. She's a little Frankensteinish.
So with that, Dark Shadows fans and Radical Ones, we wrap up hour 2 of Dark Shadows, the revival. Please follow along with us. If you would like to watch the series with us, it is available. It's on DVD, but it's free on YouTube with commercials. And not too many, David, right? right? We're not getting Chili's every
Or
5
gain flings. Yes, that seems to be my hotspot. Gain flings or the scent of Gain detergent. For our listeners that are out of the country, toxic smell, toxic chemicals.
Enjoy that. Although we're willing to be the sponsor them if they would like to have.
Oh yes, we would. I love Gain. The smell of Gain brings me back to my childhood.
You can always reach David at Universal Appeal 2020, all one word, on Instagram, as well as the Radical Retro Rewind podcast, one word, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and more. Thank you again for following along with us. And until next time, stay scared.
This Friday, the excitement will continue with the thrilling series premiere of Dark Shadows. Experience the romance, the danger, and the suspense of the classic Gothic adventure. Secrets will be revealed and passions laid bare as Dark Shadows, the series, premieres Friday at 9, 8 Central and Mountain on NBC.